Welcome back to the show. I have with us Juliana, and as you all know, this show is about singles whose opinions I would love to see if we can improve the scene out there, the matchmaking process, the single scene, the whole social aspect of it. And I'm hoping Julia is gonna have some insight for us. But first, if you want to tell us a little about yourself, whatever you want to share, it's on you. Hi, Julia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and I'm looking forward to see the outcome of this. So my name is Julia, of course. I am 32, I'll be 33. And I'm a speech therapist. I live in Queens, New York. I became a ballet tuba since 2020, the same time around COVID. And as I've been getting, in the late 20s, early 30s, looking for my Bashert, I've seen that there's just been a lot of limitations, a lot of obstacles, and just how the dating world has changed is, I think, a little difficult in some aspects where I feel like you don't have the pragmatics. Everything is online, and then there's just like so many, like, how do I say it? Like, because you can choose people and whoever you want, it can be a little limitless, because you always want to strive and get something better than what you probably have. And so I think commitment is also another thing. A lot of people are scared to be committed in a relationship because they probably want to see what else is out there or what else life has to offer.
Yeah, it's a big problem. This social media thing makes you feel like you can always do better, and you're chasing this reality. It's like we're living in two alternate universes at the same time. And yeah, it's something that was not pre social media and all this stuff. The person had to put in the work. They had to go on the date. They had to go pick the person up, get to know them. And now it's like, you could just so easily move on to this pretend person that might not even exist when you have a good one in your hand. And the thing about it, I think, is that, like, for example, I always say I don't believe in presidential debates because you have a current president debating with a wannabe president. So the current president can only claim what he's done. The president, possible elect, he can claim the world. So it's like it's not even a fair fight. And you have the same thing in dating. You are being you, and you're not perfect. I mean, you seem pretty perfect, but people are not perfect. And then on the other hand, this guy has this idea in his mind of these women he's chasing, and his imagination, can get the better of him. And it's a real challenge. So I agree with you. But when we spoke on the phone, there was more. I want you, don't hold back, because I think you have some really, really good points, and they need to be heard. People need to start saying what they're feeling so that others can make adjustments. So go for it.
So I think people are also afraid to be vulnerable because they're afraid of being hurt. They're afraid of being rejected. I think also in the dating world, there's just, like you said it before, we're chasing an illusion because of all the avatars and the filters. And sometimes the guys don't even, and I'm saying it from both perspectives, of course, but being
Right.
that I can only just kind of say how it's been from my perspective of the opposite sex. And I feel like sometimes the guys, they don't put a lot of like effort. Like, I'll get the typical hey or hey, how are you? But it's like they don't even use my name. They don't even try to like strike up a conversation, which makes me feel like it's very general. So
They could be talking to 9 other girls at the same time and seeing which one takes off.
yeah, which I understand in today's world, you're going to talk to different guys, you're going to talk to different girls. I mean, it's fine, but it's like, at least put some thought, at least put some effort into it. Try to intrigue me, try to strike me, ask me some intellectual questions, like get the ball rolling a little bit. And then I also just think that, what else can I say?
Well, let me ask you a question. What's your origin? Where are you from?
I'm Bukharian and I was born in Uzbekistan.
Okay, because I heard an accent, and that's another part of it, is that this is very American, you know, like I'm from England. In England, you don't ask somebody what they paid for their house. In America, anything goes. And when somebody is trying to court you, they need to know that you're not an American and there are certain standards. And so it's probably even more frustrating for you as an immigrant than for an average American that like they're rude to each other sometimes. So it's like give and take. It must be more frustrating for somebody from another nationality. Maybe I'm wrong. It's what I'm thinking as you
Oh,
speak.
I see myself as more like Americanized. I came to the States when I was 3. I lived in Atlanta until I was 13. I moved to New York when I was 16. I definitely see like a very huge difference. People in New York don't hold back. And sometimes I can get the occasional personal questions. I can get the occasional rudeness. I'll give a scenario of how I was talking to a guy who I didn't even think was very interested in me, but he was telling me from a guy's perspective, you didn't talk about your hormone count. You didn't talk about if it's easy for you to make babies or not. You didn't mention any health issues or mental health issues. And he's like, if these were such easy questions, they would take a yes and a no, and you would proudly answer them. And, I was like, well, where do you get off asking me these types of questions? And you don't reveal all that personal information,
You just
huh?
you just met at the time of this conversation?
Well, he had messaged me on Friday. I don't know what his intent was. Like, there have been, I mean, I had to honestly block him. I'm like, and I wished him well. And I'm like, if you want to divulge all that personal information, then that's on you. But there's just certain things that you just don't reveal. And I never thought of it like that. Like, why would a guy want to know all that? But it's things that you have to work yourself up. As I've heard before, that you don't want to reveal or open up too much, you want to keep the people intrigued, because I can be an open book sometimes, but sometimes I was like, okay, I have to pull back in certain information I don't share. And then sometimes I just feel like the guys are not reading the resumes properly. Like, I know what I want and I have my standards, and I think every girl needs to have her standards and you really need to set boundaries, you know. You want to like kind of, you don't want to play games, but you want to keep the guy intrigued. I've had guys who are a lot older than me reach out to me, and when I've said in my resume, these are my age, these are my criteria, and then they're questioning me and then they're messaging me, and it's just really like a waste of time. It's like if I'm saying that I only want to speak to certain guys of a certain criteria or certain guys of a certain age, then I would need you to respect that. But if you're not reading or listening to my needs from a resume, then sometimes you see the little hints based on the conversation and based on the kind of people who are reaching out to you. Because in my profile, I say that I go by the 5 C's. I don't know if I can remember all of them, but it's like chemistry, communication, compromise. I don't know if I can remember the 2, but it's like certain things that I go by, and I kind of did that as a way to be catchy. And sometimes I feel like the demographic of guys that reach out to me are not what I'm looking for. But there are some
Right.
guys who can be very respectful and be like, okay, I understand, Hatzlacha, good luck to you. Like, I always say end things on a positive note, because if a date or if a certain thing doesn't work out, you never know, because the Jewish world, believe it or not, is very small. I think everybody knows everyone in some way. So it's like, you never want to end things on a bad note. You never want to ghost. I think I told you before, ghosting, in my opinion, is a form of cowardness. Like,
Right.
I just feel that you should be honest with the person and say what's like.
And you might not be for this person, but your friend might be, like you're saying.
Exactly.
And now they screw themselves.
Right. So it's never good to get rejected. It's hard to put yourself out there. Like, even these single events, it can be very, very difficult. Like, I feel like it's very, very competitive. I did go to Eliza Ben Shalom's event, and I did ask her like 2 questions. Like, one question was like, hey, listen, if I want to talk to a guy, should I talk to the guy or let the guy talk to me? And I think, and this was that night, I may not remember exactly what she, but I think she said something like, of course you should try to talk to the guy, because we're also living in this century where, both sexes can talk to one another. And then you'll see if the guy is interested in you. If he isn't, you just move on. And then another thing I noticed that a lot of girls do, and I really think it needs to be said, is we're competitive, because I feel like there's more girls than there are guys. So one of the things that I will stress for girls is I feel like when I like a guy and I have a guy's attention, I call it like blocking. I feel like a girl will come and she'll try to take away the attention of the guy or try to talk to the guy, seeing that the guy is interested. And I've said several times to certain girls, like, that's not right, you know. And I actually even asked the leads, like, if I see a guy that I like, but he's talking to another girl, can I go and try to talk? She's like, well, you never want to interrupt. So I
Right.
think it should be said for the girls out there, like, you know, if you're at certain events and if you're at certain things and you see a guy that you like, but he's engaged with another girl, like I say, kind of back off, you know, because it's hard enough, you know. And a lot of the things when you're putting yourself on social media is you get rejection, you get a lot of negative lash, you get a lot of backlash. And sometimes it's like, I say to myself, and I'm like, listen, you guys are single, you guys are in the same boat. So when I feel like certain girls or certain guys are being snippy or critical, it's like, listen, we're all in this together. So why not support and wish each other luck instead of like trying to tear each other down? And I, for some reason, see that more with the girls than with the guys. And I don't understand why, because I would think as a girl, you should be more understanding and more supportive of your fellow Jewish sister.
I agree. And I think that's a very wise input. I never thought of it like that. And it's very, very good advice. Besides that, what goes around comes around, but just that, like, why would you interrupt someone else? It's just rude in any scenario. It's rude in a grocery store. That's very, very smart. I will tell you that I think the reason why it happens more with girls than guys is because guys can sort of just kick it. You know what I mean? Like they'll be into a girl, and then another guy will be into a girl, and they'll be easier to let each other know, or just girls. It's I think it's a more intense environment, these singles events for girls, because you know we can't really lose. Well, I was divorced for quite a while, and you can't really lose because you go to a singles event, you either meet a girl or you meet a new friend to hang out with, and either way you don't lose. While but the girls, it's like, I mean, yeah, I've seen what you're talking about, and the men, nobody's perfect, but that is certainly something that I think people should hear you on, because that's a good piece of advice. Thank you.
Yeah. With guys, I do feel sometimes, and maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I personally look down if I feel like if a guy cannot come up to me and talk to me on his own, he has to have his friend do it. That I don't know, that's not very appealing. I can't tell you like how many guys who have tried to talk to me and I think, okay, he's a catch, but then he'll introduce his friend who's maybe like not my type for a certain reason. And it's like, well, if you can't bring it upon yourself to come and talk to me, like I want a man who's full of confidence and self-esteem. Same as I'm sure guys today probably want girls who are independent, you know, because everything I think is to family income to with inflation and everything. And they probably want a girl who's confident and has like some good self-esteem. And I think it goes both ways, you know. I feel like another thing that I don't know why, but I was told that if you ask a guy like if he's financially stable to support a family, then that is not good, or you shouldn't ask that right away. Like I'm a very bold person. I'm very direct. I don't like to waste time. So I like to ask certain questions right away. And people are like, wow, I can't believe you asked that. I'm like, but why not? It's like I don't want to marry someone or be with someone who can't support a family or who doesn't have like a steady or stable job. I mean, I'm a speech therapist and I'm working, you know, as well. And I got my master's. So there also has to be some level of intellect. You know, you don't want your kids to struggle in the future. You don't want your kids to want for anything, you know. You always want to make sure that they're, you know, secure, because I think at the end of the day, guys are looking for girls who can bear kids. And it's biology 101. And we girls are looking for guys who are stable and provide. I mean, that's just what I've always heard from the biological perspective. You know, you're also looking for the prime. And that's why I think a lot of older guys do hit on me. And I'm sure with other girls, but there also has to be
When you
that.
say older, what age do you mean? What's older to you?
Well, I recently put in my resume from 30 to 40, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes I will try to talk to young guys, but when I go through shadchans, and I think I was telling you this, how I feel like it could be a little sexist, is like I feel like they cater to the guys. And maybe I'm wrong, but it's like I'll tell a shadchan because I'm very picky and I know it. So if I'm like trying to reach
You
out to,
should be picky. You have to be picky. You got to find the right one.
No, but I feel like if the guys are older, then they'll try to push it on the girl, right? But if I want to like talk to a guy who's maybe like 2 years younger, or maybe a few years younger, like maybe like even 27, they're like, well, he doesn't want a girl who's older. But I know I act young, I look young, I feel young, and I've been hit on young guys. So my thing is why don't you try to ask the guy first before you make that distinction? And if the guy says I'm not interested,
Oh, the
sometimes
matchmaker saying this without even checking. Oh, that's not
yeah,
cool.
he doesn't. But here's the thing: if it says on the resume, I want a girl from this and this age, and I'm looking for a girl, then yes, I will respect that. I'm like, okay. Sometimes I'm like, hey, can you just try and reach out, see if he's interested? And then you could say, oh, but it's on the age bracket. Okay, fine. But if the guy has no age bracket, then why not send my resume and let the guy speak for himself? Sometimes
Right.
I get guys who are I'm not attracted to, or guys who are a little older than me, but I'm like, but why are you sending this to me? There's an age bracket, it's like I say there has to be a balance, but I will say maybe put a little bit more emphasis for the girls because there's very few guys to begin with. And I think at the end of the day, as women, we're the ones who are going through all that pain sexually and for the birthing. So I do feel there should be more credence for the girl because,
Of
the
course.
guys the guy's not going through this, and we're the ones who have to actually build a Jewish home, and we're looking for the right guy to build that Jewish home with, but at the end of the day, we are kind of the family caretakers who are responsible for raising the kids.
Of course, the anchor. Of course. You bring up some very, very good points. I'm glad you came on. Thank you. There's there are things that I feel that are personal to you, which is important. You need to know what you want. And then there are things that you said that I just think would really like that was the goal of this conversation is to see if you can improve. And I'm glad you said it because there's a there's a man that I'm about to interview, and he says that he's concerned because when you interview women, so whatever they say can go down one way or another. It can go down like sugar. And with a man, it's almost like loaded. It's a little difficult. Guys do get away with a lot of stuff, but it's a little tricky when they express their opinion because it's just that's just how it is. Different things are easier for different genders. So I'm glad you called it out because it's not something I could call out or another guy could call out, that the women need to be more cognizant of what's going. And like I said, you see it everywhere. You see it not just women, men. You're in the grocery store and you see there's one more item and the other person's going for it, or like classic parking spot. You act like you didn't see the other person. It happens everywhere, and it shouldn't be happening. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Of course, it's scary. You're interested in that guy, but yeah, give that person their opportunity, their space. I really, really like what you said. That thank you again.
No problem.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I mean, I don't sugarcoat things, but I feel like as long as I'm saying it, because I'm very blunt, but I feel like as long as I'm being respectful and saying it in a professional manner, then I have every right to speak my mind.
Of course.
There
Of
was even like another example of a girl, like, I don't know, like, who called a matchmaker a crook. And I'm like, that's not the right thing to say. You should be respectful. You shouldn't speak Lashon Hara. Because she was saying anyone who works with the guy is a kickback or a crook itself. And I'm like, you have to be mindful and respectful, and you shouldn't speak Lashon Hara. Because I was trying to get another girl to join a group on Facebook with a certain shotgun, and she was just saying, I'm gonna call people out. But I'm like, yeah, but there's a way to do it where you're respecting the person, and I don't want you to speak Lashon Hara of that person or me.
right.
He ended up blocking me anyway, but I was like, that's just so, you just have to respect people. Like, I hear where you're coming, but there's a more professional and nicer way to say something besides calling your own kind of people crooks.
Right. Exact. I'm very with you on that.
There has to be a Chavas Yisrael, not Sinas
Love
Yisrael.
and right. Right.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. So I just want to end off by saying that if anybody watching happens to be interested in Julia, they can, well, first of all, this is an interview. If ever there is a channel where people should be commenting, comment. Julia will be keeping an eye on it. You guys can start the banter, have conversation. And as I've said before, in the description below, There's an email address that I have specifically for this purpose, so that, you guys can check each other out before anybody gives too much personal information about each other. And of course, please subscribe, like, and again, comment. Julia, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for reaching out and having me. I really appreciate it as well.
My pleasure.